So, Tom, one of the things that I hear a lot is when people talk about the reason that they were successful or that they were enjoying what they were doing was they had good people in their department. What are your thoughts around that statement?
Yeah, well, if you work in sport or in any industry, it's all about people, isn't it? People first and foremost. So the strength of your team, the talent, the way the team operates together. I think it's the foundation, isn't it? For if you're going to do anything special or achieve any kind of achievement within what you're working towards, then your people are your foundation.
Yeah. One of the things I think is interesting is that someone will say that to me and they'll maybe refer to someone who maybe they didn't think was a good person, and it's like I really get on with that person, but then the person that's saying it, sometimes that alignment piece.
Well, you've two ways, haven't you? If you're typically going to go into a business or a team, you've got the existing staff that are in place, and then you've got the recruitment or onboarding of new staff that comes in. So in one scenario, if you're going into an existing team and you're having issues with certain members of staff, you've got to build rapport and understand their view of the world, because there's good in everybody, isn't there? And they're there for a reason. There's talent in people, but I think you've got to really take the time to understand people, and you need to be a little bit more deeper than a superficial level if you really want to understand what makes people tick and also what their talents are. And you ultimately have to do that by spending time and having genuine conversations and taking a genuine interest in that person, their career, their life, to understand that.
And I suppose that's that. It sounds great, you do all that stuff, but how do you do it when you're working in the fast-paced, high demanding thing of elite sports, which you work in? How do you build that? Because there's so many other facets that are involved in it.
Yeah, well, I think you see the trend in sport now is you're starting to see people in positions of, there might be head of people, whether connected to HR or sporting directors. You're really starting to see roles where people have time to manage the performance staff, because it does take time. Like it's a massive resource really on time, and you've also got to have the operating system in place where you have those check-ins. Now, whether that's informal, whether you do structured reviews, the reality is you probably need both in there, but you've got to have protected time in your diary to have those conversations, because ultimately, if you're going to carry on regardless and not have those check-ins and not understand, ultimately, it potentially is going to unlock the success later down the line.
Yeah. And so how do you, if you were going in, like, as you do within these teams, like, what is the first thing, for one, like in an interview, when people are asking you why you want to join or what they're after, what stuff are you looking for when you're going to a team? And then what are they looking for you in, like, a head of performance role, say?
Yeah, so the reality is you're there to make change, and you're probably there to make change quickly, because that's how sport operates. There's a time frame on that. The preferential way is to take your time in embedding into a team and truly understanding. So, like an interview question you typically ask, well, what does the first 100 days look like? Your first 100 days really is about understanding. But in some scenarios, you don't have 100 days to make change. They want change sooner and quicker than that. So you can do it in a couple of ways. The formal way is really you can start to understand, let's say, soft skills. If we've got soft skills, hard skills, you factor in what the key areas are that you're looking for, and then you have the staff reflect and kind of grade themselves. So I do it a traffic light system. Where do you think? But you're relying on people, to be honest. One of the things I look for really for good people to work with is are they able to reflect? Are they able to be self-critical? Because I'm certainly not a green in every area. What I try to do is surround myself with greens where I'm a red, and I try and upskill maybe where there's not quite the skill level, but I'll upskill if someone's an orange. But I'll choose the people that need to be upskilled in one particular area where they might have more passion, or it may be complementary to their role or to the areas that they work in. So I'd have them go through that reflective piece. I would probably have observed, and I'd ask the people they work with to give some of that feedback as well from their perspective, and then just start to draw, like, where's the gaps?
So what would some of those criteria that you're judging on that, what would one of those areas be, or a couple of those areas?
Yeah, well, your hard skills could be anything, just principal to the job, but the soft skill, the grey areas is probably where it's at and what you're trying to really understand. You're looking at what are they like when they've got energy, what kind of energy they bring, how do they like to be communicated to, how do they communicate. I think you're trying to understand them as an operator, as a person, how they interact with people, how do they like to be managed, you know, what motivates them, what gets them out of bed. So you're trying to understand all these different areas, these nuances to how they are as a person, and is their reflection how they're perceived in the workplace as well. Yeah. So yes, you want people to be aligned to who they are, but who they are as a person and in a workplace might be two different things. So you're really trying to delve a little bit deeper into that.
Yeah, it's interesting as well because it's quite a small world, like elite sport world as well. I guess you probably would know someone that knows them, or maybe this can get some insight. So how do you build that into it?
Yeah, so everyone has their bias, don't they? And I think you're naturally going to have that, and you're naturally going to speak to people that know of them, because people surround themselves with people and hire people that they know, like, and trust. So I think that's the natural tendencies for what people do. So you see people recruit people in, and maybe the perception is it's jobs for the boys, or it's the easy hire, or it's a quick hire. I think in reality you're probably trying to just delve a little bit deeper into that area and put a little bit of objectivity into it, and just really stress test some of those. Because, you know, I did a post recently on my LinkedIn page, because I was just thinking about are people hiring for convenience, or do people hire for challenge? And I think in high performance, you're looking for challenge. You're not looking for conflict, but you're looking for healthy challenge. And you get challenged by hiring people with different skill sets and different personalities to yourself. So it's important that you understand where your teams are. And when you recruit someone in, they understand why you're recruiting potentially a different personality and a different skill setting, and how that's going to benefit the team. So that when someone does come in and they're slightly different or have a different view, that you're embracing that.
So you would be actively looking for someone that think actually they actually are going to say, actually, I think you're wrong on that, Tom, and bringing that in. For it.
Yes, definitely. But you know, they've got to be able to work. They've got to have the skills as well to understand that that's a two-way thing as well, that they can be challenged as well. Yeah. You know, so they can't take it personally as well when it comes the other way. So you really, you know, you may be looking for unicorns here. We all have things that kind of trigger different responses into it. I remember a piece of feedback I had 7 years ago that absolutely stung me.
You're obviously over it.
Yeah, it changed me for the better. Yeah. For definite. But I was pulled out of a meeting. I was told, if someone doesn't agree with your viewpoint, you can see on your face that you're not going to play ball. And that wasn't the person I wanted to be, but it was obviously the perception of people in the role that was like, Tom's not on board with this, because of how I'm not agreeing with this, you know, whatever my mannerisms were, whatever vibe I was giving off. Well, is that how to lead? Is that how to, you know, to create a high performance environment? No, I don't think so. I had to reflect on that, and ultimately it made me reframe and look at it in a different way. And now I'd say I'm probably the opposite. That I like it when people challenge. Yeah. And I seek that out, because ultimately I know that's what's going to drive it better.
I think I love the book Radical Candor. I love No Rules, the Netflix one, and it's all talking about challenge and being honest and how you deliver that. And as long as it's done in that positive, supportive, ultimately aiming for that top, you're trying to drive things forward. You're in a performance setting, you've got to be looking at these marginal gains and all the various different things on that. How do you manage that when you've got, say, someone, if you are the boss and you can see it on their face as well? Yeah,
you know, there's a book I love, Turn the Ship Around, and it talks about a little bit of rudder far from the rocks is better than a lot of rudder close to the rocks. So I think if you're having this embedded as your process, you should not be getting to that stage where it's kind of crunch time, head on, where there's a line in the sand here. So you're probably looking to divert that early enough where it doesn't come to that kind of conflict. So there's a fine line, I think, isn't there, between challenge, healthy challenge, and then actual principle disagreement based on someone's values or morals or integrity. And I think when you're compromising that, that's probably shown that you've got a lack of understanding for the people that you're working with. But you've maybe not done the legwork leading up to that, and you get into this crunch point where there's conflict. But I've been in so many teams where conflict exists, and I've never seen it being that healthy. I've never seen it have real positive outcomes. It tends to tear places down than build them up.
So it sounds like it's quite a fine line, even though it's fundamental differences. Like, how do you detect conflict versus challenge?
I think it's through having that process behind where you're checking in with people regularly. They know where you're coming from, your reasoning for questioning and where that challenge comes from. And also tonality of meetings, environments of meetings. If things are across the table and it's very direct, if we've got a desk in front of us here and it's very formal and it's a little bit sprung on you by surprise, it's going to be a little bit more conflicting, isn't it, than if we sat casually having a coffee and chatting about how it may look, how it may go, what challenges we've been having. I think if there's a genuineness about how you support your team, and I think leadership now is through support, as well as providing the vision. Then I think the tone in which you have those conversations is a contributing factor to maybe how they're perceived by your team members.
Yeah, who said that to you? Not by name, but who said that feedback?
A head coach that I work with.
Right. Yeah. And how did you respond in that initial period when?
I was being told.
Right.
I was being told that wasn't acceptable.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was pretty direct. But as well, I can work I enjoy working in that way, so I don't mind the directness of it. But that's not for everybody.
Yeah.
But these are as well. We're talking about nice environments here. High performance and high performance sport is not necessarily that plain sailing, is it? So I think there's a degree of straightforwardness that people appreciate as well. But that's my personality type. I prefer to get it in the chest, get it between the eyes, and then I can make the decision. I can reflect on that and ultimately make a choice.
How do you do this? So you've got within a team, so you've got, albeit that the coach is out of the performance team there, but how do you get that with ownership in a team? You've got a load of different stakeholders, you've got the players, there's a number of different areas. How do you try and build that positive, challenging but healthy culture across different departments?
Yeah, the ecosystem of it's so complex. The personality types are so different, especially within a playing group as well. But I think that's where if you've built a diverse team, you've probably got more of ability to effectively communicate the direction or the challenges with the various stakeholders that you've got. So, with your ownership group, you're looking at vision, strategy, and typically, if that's where we're going, that's where we're going, and we might then work on with coaching staff, with sporting directors, with heads of department. You'll then work on the strategy for achieving that aim, but then you're really relying on your staff to really live that and carry that out into the playing group. So that's where you probably are relying on having quite a diverse team, because if you try and do it in one way, I think ultimately, you may get 70% of the athletes on board, but you're probably going to have some disconnect with 30% just because of the way it's either communicated, the way it's either carried out in terms of strategy and day-to-day operations. But I think if you've got those different personalities within the team, you've more of a chance to really live those values. And that's what you're looking for, really. You've got to live those values every day, and you've got to be championing those KPIs, that vision, that strategy. It's got to be in everything that you do all the time. The typical way is writing on the wall, isn't it? But it has to actually be in the workings of what you do.
How often does that happen in your experience of the teams that you've been involved in? Because it's easy to have vision, values, and sometimes you'll ask a question in our team and it's like, you can tell they don't really know, and it's like, how do you not know this? But that ultimately does call on me or fall on you there. So how often does that happen, that people really buy into it, and how do you know that they buy into it?
I think it happens more often than people think. I think, look, we're talking about high performance, but we'll just call it performance, because I think there's very few that are carrying out high performance. But where I've experienced it done well is when it's front and centre and it's spoken about all the time. It doesn't change week to week. It stays strong when things are good. It stays strong when things are bad. And people are constantly being brought into that North Star all the time, reminded what it is, reminded how we're going to do it, and maybe the KPIs or the key values that are going to contribute towards that success. So I think the custodians of that need to be your leadership, and that's your leadership group within your athletes, it's your leadership group within your heads of department, for example, or from your directorship. So what was the second part of that?
I think just how do you know that everyone is on board with that? Is there a way of monitoring it?
Well, do you see it? Do you feel it? When someone comes into your environment, what are they taking from it? It should be living all the time. It's an ecosystem. It's live all the time. And the improving, if you are, can you put KPIs to it? And if you put KPIs to it, are they improving? Is the program aligned to those KPIs? Is it carrying out exactly what it's supposed to carry out? So it's the constant communication and the living of those values or KPIs and that environmental feel that you know we've come into your offices this morning. I've commented to you on, the energy in this place is really good. The location's good, but the vibe's good. The people, Well, what do you want people saying about your environment when they come in? Do they feel it's cold? Do they feel it's clinical? Do they feel it's transactional? Or do they feel it's warm, friendly, energy, driven?
Yeah.
Or they're keeping each other accountable? Some difficult conversations going on, but you feel that.
Yeah, you definitely can do, and that's one of the reasons why I love where we are there. It embodies me, and we've talked about other options, and it's like, there's no way I want to be in some office block somewhere else out there. But that's by the by. So one of the things I find tricky in sport is, within a private organisation, you've got a leadership team, or company owner, or whatever. So it's very clear what the hierarchy is. It might be, you've got different views from everyone up, but within sport, I think it's really quite confusing, because you've got the performance, you've got the players, who are probably the biggest cost, certainly in football. Are they driving it? Arguably they are, because they're the most valuable assets. Then you've got the owners, you've got the coaching staff, and then you've got performance. And there's a lot of different stakeholders there, and it's like, well, who does those values? Who creates the values? Is it the players? Is it performance team? Is it the owners?
Yeah.
How do you do that?
Yeah, well, I think the trend now, isn't it, is about coaches do come in and out, especially in football, and there's clubs now moving to kind of have a longer term protection about those key areas. So they're putting staff in, sporting directors that maybe control that narrative a lot more, and that stays pretty strong. And then the flexibility maybe in game preparation, maybe a little bit in playing style as well. That'll be nuanced from coach to coach. That's a little bit more transactional depending on what staff you come in. So you've kind of got this firm body on one hand that keeps the integrity of the club, and your data processes are all aligned. Your vision and strategies is all aligned, and that's reinforced, and that's maybe a long term. And then you've got maybe a coaching staff who then brings in his own staff, but that's very day-to-day operations, season to season probably, in what they do. And then they've got to kind of live within this structure that they're being given. So, that homework should have been done in the recruitment of the coach. Yeah. In fact, it should have been done. Okay, if you're going to bring someone in that conflicts against the values, then maybe this is why some teams are continuously in this cycle of changing staff every year. And it's a real problem, is it, in sport? The turnover of staff is, on my perception of it, it's pretty high, the turnover. Well, that can be good and bad. That can be good and bad, can't it?
What do you mean by that?
Well, if the change needed, then obviously it's good to move fast on those kind of things. But ultimately, if you want something long lasting, it's not going to be built within 6 months, 9 months, and then have to restart it again and again and again. So at some stage, you're probably looking at some longevity towards your performance team. I always think for that flavour that, you know, there's probably a need to keep some of it pretty fluid, and that might be contracting staff season to season or on project to project. I think we'll start to see that change, that culture a little bit more in pro sports. You start to see more consultants work in specific areas, real experts. So I think top teams now will have like a core nucleus of staff that can run the operation, that are aligned to the values of the team, but then they're probably saving a little bit, and rather filling, let's say, the final 2 places, they're actually using that budget to go, well, what problems do we need solving? Okay, we may spend 6 months, 3 months solving this problem here and bringing an expert in to consult on that, and then that consultant goes and we go to another problem and we improve the system. I think one of the areas I work with teams is really putting the systems in place for long-term success. And the way to do that is to build something, then iterate on that and bring people in to challenge that system. So rather than being a personal challenge, is to recruit talent to actually work on the system and improve it and improve it and improve it. And you may have real good deliverers on the grass in the gym, you know, really good coaches that can deliver face to face, but the system in the background, you're just constantly evolving and stress testing and upregulating, you know, with expert.
You need to have, if you're coming in to do that, you need support of like a long-term.
Well, that's your ownership.
Yeah.
You know, to be aligned with what you're doing and maybe how you're going to manage those budgets, and why you're not going to solve all problems straight away. So you've got to understand what the biggest rocks are initially, and when you start to get some structure and stability in that area, then you can really start to create that challenge, but that intentional challenge in specific areas. To really, you know, build a high performance program really to make it world class is what teams are looking to do.
But Gary Neville talks about DNA a lot, and he's talked about Man United's DNA, and he doesn't really define exactly what it is. But you're talking about their culture. He knows the way they play. But then United tried to do that with Dan Ashworth, you know, technical director goes in, and he's very successful at all these clubs. And it doesn't work, and then he's gone within 6-9 months.
Yep.
Whereas he's doing, or he should be doing, I think, that role that you're talking about there.
Yeah, well, they've gone from Alex Ferguson, who was probably a really strong leader in terms of identity of how he's going to run things. But as they found out, have they really replaced him or replaced that personality type? Well, the argument is, you know, with the modern day player as well, that just doesn't seem to work. That headstrong leadership just doesn't seem to work as well. I think a sporting director may come with certain philosophies, but I think ultimately they've got to cultivate within the team and the coaching staff what those values are, and from the ownership what those values are and what that identity is, and really bring that to life. You know, and it's ultimately, you know, people say the club's bigger than the person. Well, that's how the club is bigger than the person. It's got to stand for a lot more than any one individual, because these are unicorn leaders. You know, if we talk about politicians, you know, these are unicorns that really, the really strong personality types, clear direction in what they're doing. And yes, that works for a period of time, but it's their way or the highway, isn't it? You know, and I think everyone wants to recruit one of those, but I'm not sure how many actually exist.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think they are like business leaders. Like Alex Ferguson, if you put him in any business, I'm sure he'd be very successful. Klopp, just you know, he'd be brilliant at doing what he's doing. They're almost statesmen, really, and they're creating. It's probably like Ferguson. Didn't do any coaching, did he? Really, he was creating the environment, and that's what you're trying to create.
A custodian of the environment, wasn't he? You know, so I think that's it. Not sure on Klopp, you know, whether he was on field or, you know, kind of really protecting the standards, but they probably, these statesmen have clear visions, don't they? Really clear visions. Clarity is in my opinion, you know, one of the necessary one of the necessary things for a high performance environment. You know, I think they've got to have complete clarity over what they're trying to achieve. The how can be nuanced, but I think where they're going, I think people really need to know that. And I think where you really get buy-in is if everything's aligned towards doing that. And I think there's so many, you know, look, every club will name the values, as we were discussing earlier, but how many actually live them? How many are actually integrated from top to bottom to achieving those? How many are held accountable towards achieving those? I think that's the difference between high performance cultures and just professional sports clubs. And I think the majority are like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Mourinho's another one where he was, you knew it was going to be 2 or 3 years probably. He'd come in, drive it. I know certain people that absolutely thrived under him, and some were like, he is horrendous. Yeah. And it's even similar, I'd heard stuff about Klopp as well, where I was surprised to hear it, but I suppose if you're driving to be the absolute elite, you're going to piss some people off, aren't you?
Of course, yeah. Yeah, well, and yeah, that's part of it, isn't it? Like, it doesn't need to be for everyone. It's, you know, you're not trying to make everyone happy, but you're trying to find people that want to work in whatever system they want to pursue. You know, and that's the reality is there's a cost. You know, there's a cost to high performance, and it's people being on board that are aware of what that is, going in, you know, full eyes open and understanding what that cost is. You know, you're not, as I said earlier, you know, we're talking about, we can't confuse like these environments with nice environments, although there is a nicety to it, but it is challenging. You are trying to create challenge because you're trying to push all the time. So that's why you want the challenge, to push. Not everyone wants to be challenged all the time, so you've got to make sure that when you bring people on board, they understand what they're signing up for. You know, and when you're working with these personality types as well, for some people there's a shelf life to that, and it's about people understanding that, okay, I'm in for 1 year, I'm in for 3 years, I'm in for 5 years, but not everyone has to be there for the full journey.
Yeah. I think it's interesting. I think particularly with sport, no matter how people talk about it, so many people are leaving the industry. Whenever you go in, I go to training grounds, I go to a game, it's exciting. And everyone wants to be a part of it because everyone says, oh, you work with teams whenever I say what I'm doing. And it's like, well, yes, we do, but it's a small part, but that is what people are really interested in. And that, I think, is the same from the clinician's perspective. So I think naturally people do become protectionist of themselves and think, actually, well, I want to stay here. I don't want to be here for 12 months, 12 months or 3 years, whatever. I like this job. And so you naturally will... You're trying to, it's like, you know, the Darwin theory, you're trying to survival for your own position within that role. So how do you manage that within those environments?
Yeah, well, again, it's aligned to your values, which is performance management of staff, isn't it? So it's to what KPIs they're working towards, and are you keeping them accountable towards those? So yes, so look, someone can. The reality is that if something's going to go from here to here, there's growth required. There's growth required from the club, but there's probably growth required from the people if they're going to stay the course. So if someone only has this much growth, they need to get off here, don't they? So we need them. We need to be supporting staff so that they can grow as the company goes, and then, you know, where people go with that journey is dependent on their skill set, where they want to go with their career. You know, that's okay. If people want to come in and out, that is okay as well. You know, it's just, I think it's understanding, you know, what's at play here, what's it going to take, and then if that's clear from both sides, then I think that's a good relationship. And then I think when it, you know, you get it, and sometimes you get it in and people come in and they just say that's me. I'm done. I've done it. You know, I've been in positions and done that, and I've not lost any drive or respect for the people that I work with. But I can recognise this is maybe going in a direction I don't want to go, and that's okay. Just go in, and I think this is where I get off this, and I think this is a good opportunity. Then, and if you're running it, you know, if you're running a club or you're managing a performance team, I would like to think I'm never worried about that conversation where I'm dependent on one single person. Yes, I'm disappointed if people go, but I'm trying to build a skill set within the staff and an operation system where nothing's actually going to change from a delivery point of view or from player facing point of view. But it's an opportunity then to go, actually, we can re-look at where we're at, who we've got on board, and maybe we go in a slightly different direction now. Maybe we just change track a little bit and we bring some new energy in, or we get a slightly different skill set in. So it's constantly changing.
Yeah, Ferguson did that, didn't he? He would change his number 2 regularly, Steve McLaren.
You see Eddie Jones do it, don't you? You know, ruthlessly. But again, you see maybe quick performance and high performance in some things, and then you see complete disaster, don't you, at some places as well. And the fallout from that is probably coming out gradually, isn't it? But I think that ultimately comes down to what type of person you want to be, what type of leader do you want to be, and yes, you're going to get these high performers come in that have got different personality traits, but not everyone has to be like that to be successful, I think is the key message, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think being authentic to yourself is a massive thing for whatever it is. Just be who you are with it, because I also, like we talk about, and sometimes people refer to within physical repair that family, and it's like, well, I want it to be an amazingly supportive environment, but then family gives you the impression like family is your family.
Whatever happens,
yes, your family is your family, and I know that stuff happens there as well, but really you want that performance environment where it's like, look, we're happy to get told, actually we think we can improve that, that we don't agree with that. That's good conversations, really, that you want. Again, I don't always like it, and people will challenge what I'm doing, but that is what you want to cultivate.
Yeah, call it friends. You can't choose your family, but you can choose your friends.
Yeah.
But I think ultimately there's it's keeping that dialogue going and people knowing that they're not too, not overly familiar.
Yeah.
And okay. Like trust, psychological safety is a key area, but does that mean everything's easy and friendly? Well, no, I'm not sure it does. But I think having genuine leadership and consistent behaviour, we've all worked. I'm sure we've all worked for different people where they fly off the handle, they're erratic. Well, like the cons of that, don't you? If you've experienced it, then you probably know, is that how I want to be led? Is that how I want to lead a team? Whereas if someone can be straight down the line with you, but if they're really consistent in how they support you and how they communicate with you, and they take the emotion out of it, then I think people can deal with that. Yeah. People can deal with an honest conversation, and whether that's good or bad news. I think they can.
I think a lot of people do struggle with doing it, and it's like, from my side, it's not a natural thing. You don't you feel like you want to be a people pleaser, and you don't. Oh, I'm going to upset them.
I'd be the same, but I think that's why I took, if it's part of your process, it shouldn't be a shock when that comes. I think if you're getting to that point of no return, it shouldn't be a shock for either of you. Yeah. It shouldn't be. And then it's never a good conversation. If it's affecting someone's life and livelihood, then it's never a good conversation. But I think if you've developed them, worked with them from a genuine point of view, then and you've done all you can to help them through various appraisals that you've been through and support that you've given, then I think when that conversation comes, because it's not working out, I think they understand it's not working out as well, but you've communicated that 5 times before that process. It's not just a one and done and wholesale change.
Yeah, so no, it's a really interesting conversation, and I'm fascinated by it, particularly in sport, because I know so many people are in it. So, like, what would you, as a closing statement, like, what do you see the future of performance, of that, creating that performance environment within elite sport or business?
Yeah, I think really consistent systems, standard operating procedures, staff aligned to vision, and that being aligned throughout a company or throughout a sporting organisation. And I think that 70-30, I think allowing that 30% to be innovation, because you're built on absolute solid foundations, and being able to bring energy, flavour, expertise, and you can do that through contracting, short-term contracting, or being really purposeful in your recruitment to bring that expertise into your organisation to then push these marginal gains, these 1%ers, but they're bigger than that. You know, people talk about 1%. I just, they're nowhere near needing the 1%. There's 60% there for some organisations and teams. You know, there's some really basics that they could be doing by just getting the actual structure right, getting the recruitment right, and getting those processes right. You know, there's so much there in optimising current staff, I feel, and then leave yourself some room for the unknown, because sport is moving so fast that if you've committed all your budget and all your resource and you've just got your structure and that's what we're going with, I don't think that's adaptable enough for modern sport and to be able to pivot and move with when opportunities arise, for you to be able to make that move and make that pivot. So I'd keep a little bit back. Yeah.
No, it's very exciting. I appreciate you coming in and talking about it.
Yeah, I appreciate the time, yeah.
And looking forward to seeing your next moves in working in this area.
Yeah, great, Andy, thank you.
Cheers.